Welcome to Leadership Talks with your host, Dr. Kate Vawter. In each episode, Kate speaks with successful leaders across industries, real people, and local leaders. Each of her conversations explore different leadership styles, how people achieve unbelievable success, overcoming challenges, and how to become the best in the world. You can find this show at www.ascentsolutions.net and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Now here's the host of Leadership Talk, Dr. Kate Vawter.
Good morning. Hi, Gabe.
Hello, good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. To our listeners, this is Gabe Hagen. He is the co-owner of Brick Road Coffee, currently in Tempe, Arizona, but I bet in the next few years, lots of other places. He is a Midwest native from Iowa and is currently in Tempe Leadership, Class 38. The great. Yeah, the best class ever. So I'm ready to dive in. Do you feel ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. Let's see. So now you own a coffee store, which is this like thriving hub in the community that people just love being at. I am particularly curious about side note, I'm a bit of a statistician, so sometimes I use math terms like point of inflection. My guess is there was a point of inflection in your life between like first life and current life.
Yep.
What was the moment?
Yeah, so I have been, actually yesterday was our 1 year from unlocking the door at Brick Road. So we didn't tell anybody we were open, but we unlocked the door and pulled the Band-Aid off. But before that, I was actually in banking for 15 years. So I did everything from a teller all the way up. Before I left, I was a compliance manager, had a master's, all that fun stuff. And the pandemic happened. So the story does tie back to the pandemic, and it just made me question, what am I contributing to the world, and what do I really want to do? And I saw a need. I looked back at what I wanted when I was a kid, and I was like, I really wish there was a space in the community that was not centered around alcohol. I love coffee, so I was like, well, coffee. I worked at Starbucks before. I worked at other coffee shops before, so like I have that experience, and I remember those interactions with the community, and I really loved that. And then I also wanted a place that was actively considering how it catered to some of the overlooked community. Like I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and there's not a lot of spaces for us that are specifically designed for us that are not bars. So I wanted to create a space that the community could gather, that we could host safe events where people felt comfortable coming in, being their authentic self. And I felt like that was needed. I feel like coming out of a pandemic, especially, the community went from being out there in the world to shut down completely, and then coming out was this great opportunity to reconnect the community in a really a place that's centered around love, like love and acceptance. That's what it comes to. So, and coffee. We like coffee. So
yeah, and pastries. Those new croissants. Whew,
yep.
those are tasty.
Those are from another local bakery. They're Squares Bakery. Very proud. Like, most of our pastry case is made by other LGBTQ small business owners. So it's really a fun ecosystem to see that we can kind of all lean on each other and support each other.
Yeah, I do. I love it there and everything about it. So I'm happy to be there all the times, and almost was like, let's do it. Let's do our podcast in the store this morning.
I almost did, but I thought it might be a little too loud.
I thought the same thing. It's like, next time. So, as a leader, one of the things I teach in my personal leadership classes is leadership is really like, eventually you're including other people in this journey, but the first part is really yourself. So as you were having this epiphany of like, oh, I should not do bank things and instead create this wonderful space. What was that journey like for you and your identity?
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Like, let's just
Yes, thank
be
you for your
completely real.
honesty.
Like, it was terrifying. And like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I think some of it was like pent up energy from the pandemic. And I was just like, I literally Googled coffee shops for sale in Tempe, and there happened to be a shop that closed right behind my house that closed during the pandemic. And I was like,
For those of
oh,
you not watching, my mouth just dropped.
right. Like, it was literally like a late night, like, frustration, like, oh, I'm going to do a coffee shop and let's see how hard it'd be. And the universe just was like, here you go. Construction is done. You just have to take over, find suppliers, find staff, tell people that you exist. Didn't think about all those things when I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
So kind of a little bit of blind luck, a little bit of dumb ambition, like, and then once we got to the like started signing checks and writing the money and seeing how expensive it was to actually do this, it really started to feel a lot of the imposter syndrome. I started to feel like, am I really the right person to do this? Like, should I be taking this role? Like, people are expecting certain things from a business. Can I provide that? Can I actually meet their expectations? Can I create the space that I want to create? And even in that journey of like figuring out the space that I wanted for Brick Road, and even though now we do a lot of queer inclusive events, when we first opened a year ago, it was like there were tons of nods to the queer community. Like, there's a mural that Paige Resor, a local artist, did here in Tempe on our wall, and she was able to incorporate so many nods to queer culture and like just an explosion of rainbow. And obviously, we're named after Brick Road, which is like the yellow brick road and ties to Wizard of Oz. So the mural is this beautiful black and white picture of downtown Tempe with a yellow brick road winding through it, and it ends in a coffee cup that explodes in color. And in that coffee cup, there's a silhouette of two guys. So there's tons of little nods that we put throughout the store, but we struggled with whether or not to lean into our authentic selves.
Yeah.
Even our supportive family asked us when we started saying like, hey, I think we're going to gear this towards the queer community.
Mm-hmm.
They even asked us, and it's genuinely concerned, but they asked us, are you going to lose business by making that decision? And that was one of those points where it's like, that's a good question, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it became to the point where it's like, I think at some point you have to stop thinking about bottom line and start thinking about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that was really where I feel like I caught my stride, I guess, as a leader. Like, I started to realize, like, trusting my instincts, following my desire to support the community really led to way more success, way faster than we ever anticipated. Like I said, a year old, and like we're blowing away the projections that I thought. So that's come with its own challenges, though. I'm learning how do I manage a business, and like I'm learning the importance of why numbers do matter, and like you still have to balance that. But by and far, the leaning into the community has been the thing that has been the most successful for us, and it's been fun. I love it.
Yeah, fun, scary, terrifying.
But yeah.
All of those things. You know, you mentioned imposter syndrome, and I think it's got to be universal. Of like, if somebody doesn't experience imposter syndrome, I've got some questions about their own mental wellness of like, because it's just, and I don't know the deeply rooted psychology of it, of like why it happens. But for all of us, like part of being a leader is, you know, doing these things we haven't done before and leaning into hard things and trying to listen to our authentic selves. And yeah, that, you know, Brene Brown talks about the anxiety gremlin of like that just angsty little gremlin in your head who says things that aren't true. And I think there's an imposter syndrome gremlin too, of like just angsty little gremlin, probably about this color. That's like, you're not good enough. You
Oh
can't
yeah,
do it.
those are
Why
definitely
you?
all the thoughts that I thought, and like
Mm-hmm.
I focused so much on community. I really struggled with getting confidence around the product that I was serving. I doubted whether or not I was doing coffee good enough because uh, it was it took me a long time to wrap my head around the fact that there are a ton of coffee shops. And then it was probably a month after we opened and started serving customers that I realized like coffee is subjective. Doesn't matter how good it is to me, somebody's gonna hate it. And
Yep.
that was what I finally told myself, and I was like, okay, focus on making sure that we know how to handle our customers and we know how to interact with them like they're human. And if they don't like it, then find something else for them. Just be genuine and honest, and they will respond to that. So that was one of the struggles that I had. Like I had all these ideas for the community aspect, but then when it came to the business, it's like, can I do this? I worked for a corporation for so long. I'm so used to somebody saying this is your responsibility. And if something goes wrong, you're just like, okay, I put in a ticket, somebody does it, and it gets fixed. There's no ticket system at Brick Road.
Fix it, please.
It's my cell phone. my team is like,
Yeah.
the water stopped. Did you turn the water on? No. Oh, okay. Let me come in and fix that for you. So there's simple things like that.
Righty tighty, lefty loosey.
Yes. You become a jack of all trades when you open a food service.
Right. Yeah. Well, you mentioned, you had the strong vision for the community part, and the coffee side evolved. I think a lot of business owners are that way. Folks who like have this strong passion or skill set, but not so much the skill set of all of the things to open and run and scale a business. And that's of my experience very normal. And that makes you the right person to be an entrepreneur. It just means you got to bring some other people along with you to do the other stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the lessons that I learned, actually. Speaking of that, like really quickly, I leaned into knowing what I don't know and bringing in people to do it. Like I hate marketing, absolutely hate it. And as a business owner, I shouldn't, because that's how people find out about us.
Yeah.
So I brought in an LGBTQ owned marketing firm and PR firm and brought them in from day one. They helped us roll out solid branding, build out our logo, and like just really kind of gave us that professional touch that I wouldn't have been able to do had I tried to take that on myself. And so like that elevated us to a point where it wasn't long after we were open, people are asking like, oh, how many locations do you have? And it's like, just this one. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have employees. Yeah. The first 2 months I didn't have employees. It was me from open to close. So like I literally opened without hiring because I didn't know how to hire. I was like, I'm used to posting a rec. Like I post a position and then HR does it. So it's like, it was terrifying posting that first like Facebook ad, like we're hiring. And then I'm realizing, oh, that means I'm paying them too. And that means I pay taxes on that. And that means everything starts to set in, and the terror spiral just goes on and on. But it's just that plowing through, bringing in those partners that like can answer those questions, and trusting your community. Here in Phoenix, we have a really diverse coffee community as well. And like I met with a lot of different coffee roasters to figure out who's going to be my partner there. A lot of the local coffee shops really extended that olive branch and was like, hey, let me know if you have any questions, like happy to help. They've been great partners. Like none of us look at each other, at least in my opinion, as competition. We look at I try to look at us as like this ecosystem of small businesses that are really trying to just provide something different than the big box chains.
Yeah, it is. It's just such a nice of, you talked about authenticity and how you wanted to be authentic to yourself. How did you, as a co-owner, what was the process like to define authenticity for the business because I can feel it when I'm there. I can feel like this is a safe place to be and be myself, and to include, like, to invite anyone. Like, I love inviting people who haven't been there yet, of like, come here, you're gonna love it. Because it just feels good. So how did you, I guess, it's one thing to be like, all right, this is what I want and this is how I feel, but how do you translate that to your team and to the space?
Yeah, so speaking of co-owners, it's co-owned with my husband, so thankfully we have a working relationship. It's
Yeah.
learning how to work together a little bit, but he's not in the day-to-day every day, so it's a little bit easier. But we had a similar vision. So he came from his background. He works in banking now, but before that, he was a manager of a nightclub in San Diego where it was a gay nightclub. So he had a really strong idea of what it was like to create community for the LGBTQ community. Granted, it was centered around alcohol, but he was able to pivot and reuse that same skill set. So between the two of us, we were able to kind of put what we wanted in there, really lean into what we wanted, and then to create that space is very difficult because one of my most difficult things when I first started was taking a day off, because after I hired people, that culture, like you said, like, how do I trust somebody to make sure that every person that comes through that door is going to get that same experience? When it's me, I know I can be genuine and I know I can provide what that, because I am Brick Road at that point, right?
Yeah.
So how do I make this thing that's beyond myself? And it really just comes down to hiring, taking chance on people, and treating them with respect. So I have a pay philosophy that is, I will not take advantage of these labor laws that allow me to pay less than minimum wage because of tips. I don't agree with that. I don't support that. And I think if I want to do a business, I need to find a way to do it a little bit more ethically. Otherwise, why am I in business? And the community that we are serving, they want to support businesses like that. So it's kind of this like ecosystem that does support itself. So I find employees that I can take a chance on that really believe in the mission of what we're trying to do and understand that purpose, and can look at it more than just like, you're not here just to sling coffee. Like, your primary job is to create that community. And I reinforce that with how I, whether it be discipline, quote unquote, or just how I coach my team. I make sure I temper my reactions. If we get a bad review because somebody didn't like the coffee, or so and so didn't remake their coffee fast enough, that's not the review I care about. I care about the reviews that are like, this person was mean, this person, didn't make me feel welcome, this person misgendered me. Those are the things where it's like, these are the core issues around who we are. And it's making sure that we accept everybody as they are when they come in. You're not going to please everybody. Somebody's not going to like the coffee. Somebody's going to come in with exactly 30 seconds to get their coffee, and we're not going to be able to meet that expectation because it's not realistic. So there's just things you have to acknowledge and accept, and you just reinforce that with how you speak to your team, how you teach your team, and providing a safe space for them to feel like they can come to you when they need things. And that really does create that environment where they come in every day and they blow my socks off. Like, it's literally, I'm just so impressed with how well they have nurtured that community and really grown it so much. So
That's so nice.
yeah.
You mentioned you're doing your own hiring now. I love interviews and crafting questions to get to know people. I've also been reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. I'm like one chapter in, but so far fascinating. So I'm curious, you post your job. I'm going to choose not to dive into what you put in the posting. People come in, you ask them questions. What kind of stuff do you ask and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. So it really varies. I have my manager who really does kind of have this really like a sixth sense of discovering somebody's personality and what their vibe is like. We'll always ask them what their sign is. Just like that opens up so much conversation right there, just about their personality, and you really do find out a lot by them just answering that one simple question. But I will typically keep my questions around what their passions are, because I have found when I can find employees that have a passion that is transferable or usable in the workforce. It may not be the primary thing that we're doing, because obviously very few people are gonna be like, I'm passionate about cleaning toilets every night and
Yeah.
general food service requirements. Nobody's gonna say that's their passion. Like, let's be real. But if I can find somebody that says, I really love being creative, I love creating, different drinks, or I love experimenting with food, or I love drawing, all of those things are skills that I could use in some form. And so when you can find that person that really has that vibrant personality, that has a skill set that is a hobby that they really love, that you can apply to their job, you kind of align those questions to figure out, can I create this environment that's really going to support their end result, and their end goals versus my immediate needs. I'm in the fortunate position, I like to say, that I am hiring entry level. I am hiring
Mhm.
people where when I was interviewing at the bank, it was, I want to do this. I want to be a compliance manager. I want to be a chief ethics officer. This is my ambition, and this is how I get there. I am
Ethics
hiring.
officer.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, right? I am hiring people where if they tell me they want to work in food service till they retire, I'm going to probably laugh. That's not their result. Like, most people are either going to school or have passions. I have one employee that does want to own their own coffee shop someday. So like, that is what I'm looking for. Somebody that I can teach, like, hey, if I can show you what I've learned and like set you free, and you can remove a barrier for your journey of what you want to do, like, that's what I'm looking for. So I think it's really important for me to recognize where I'm at in the economic ecosystem, and hiring people that I can provide the opportunity for employment, but also nurture their passions and hopefully help set them up for greater advancement down the road.
I love that, and just want to do so much more work with you. But that aside, how do one of the things I sometimes struggle with is this balance of time, right? Of manage business, do all the things that need to happen to make business move forward, and support people as individuals on their journey. So, what's that like for you? How do you do you have a structure or
No,
a,
no,
okay.
we're a year in, and the structure is I don't have a personal life. Sleep is optional, and
Okay.
that's that's where we're at. But it's a small business journey.
Yeah.
Again, kind of going back to that ecosystem that I work with. I work with a lot of young kids. Like, they're very young in their journey.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of people that also have experienced some form of trauma in some way, shape, or form. I mean,
Yeah.
the two primary communities that I like to say we support are the sober and recovery community and the queer community. Neither of those communities are like out here like rocking out like, yeah, I've never experienced trauma. Like, they've all experienced it at some form. So like, it really is a balance. My team jokes that Jesse and I are basically like their dads, like we adopted them, or they're two gay dads. And so like, it really is, it's accepting that role and being
Yeah.
okay with it. If I wanted a business where I could shut things off and not have to deal with people, I'm in the wrong business. But like, I'm in a role where my staff is going to call me because their battery died, or because they got into a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend and don't know how to process it, and like, really just want that trusting environment, and so like, or trusting person to talk to, and I'm grateful that they feel like they can come to me. Like, so it's hard to balance that, just because it really is like, I have 10 children and I love them dearly, and I don't have grandparents that I can just send them off to, unfortunately. So
Yet.
Yet.
The business will grow.
Yeah.
The community will grow.
Yeah. So,
And I bet as you are nurturing all of their growth, that's going to put them in a position to be able to support the next round of people.
Yeah, I mean, I already see it with like the two people that are my manager and the supervisor that I have. They have already like I've supported them a lot, and they have started stepping up and like trying to, I don't want to say intervene, but like put themselves between me and everybody else, because they're like, okay, you're probably getting a lot, so maybe everybody should call us first, and like we'll help them with the personal stuff, or we'll help them with that, so that way it alleviates a little bit from myself or Jesse. And so like they're doing that on their own accord, though. They're trying to set that up because they know what we've done for them, and they know kind of our bandwidth of what we can support. So like that ecosystem is building itself, and that community is really within the employee base is kind of already forming, if you will.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask a tougher question.
Yes, please.
I love that you support, all the people. They are so lucky to have you. And what are you doing to take care of yourself?
Working on it. I am working on it. So I started actually this month. I was like, it's been a year since I unlocked the door. I'm trying to rebalance. I'm trying to give myself like 3 days a week where I give myself at least an hour to do a workout, to focus on meal planning for the week, really just kind of center things back around my life and what I need. Because I'm not going to lie, opening this business, I let myself go. I stopped working out. I stopped doing things that I love doing because I don't have the time. I don't have it's more convenient just to grab something to eat versus making a healthy meal. And so now I am trying to give myself a few days a week to have more grace with myself, prioritize my time, at least an hour where I can do those things. But it is difficult. We're 3 weeks in, and I can honestly say there's been weeks where I failed at that. So, but it's a learning process. I have to learn how to balance that. I'm hoping that it continues to get better. I'm very grateful that my husband is so supportive, and like he's actively trying to figure out how he can step up to really make sure I get that hour. My team is also like I'm just very transparent with my team too. Like I tell them that it's like, hey, this is my goal. I want to do this. I need to focus on me. I tell them everything. I tell them our numbers. I tell them our sales. They know how much money we're not making. They know the journey of a small business, because I don't ever want them to be surprised. I don't ever want them to feel like they're doing all this stuff for me to go sit and count all the millions in some dark corner, and like they see how much money right. So, and that really motivates them. Now they actively like check on how the sales are, and like they're asking, like, they look at the orders that come in and they're like, okay, so they start to figure all that stuff out. Like they're smart. They want to make the business successful too, and like that's a beautiful thing. So
absolutely. I love that you're trying to reprioritize self, and that, you're talking to the team about it, because I think I've done quite a bit of work with folks in early career, and just the American norm is this like work until you die, and that is crappy. And so to have you as this role model who is talking about, hey, I need to rebalance my personal equation, and here is my goal. It just sets such a good example for them that life is more than work, and that you as a person matter. I hope that, on your journey with that, you have some grace for yourself, because if last month you did nothing and this month you did one thing, that's statistically an infinite improvement, right?
I love
Like
that.
0 to not 0, infinity growth.
Yes.
And like, that's huge, you know, because each one step matters. And, you know, reading some sort of something about like if you walk a mile every day, at the end of the year, you've walked 365 miles. And that 1 mile is usually pretty easy. But it adds up. And so that one little thing, you know, I'm hearing you say an hour 3 times a week, but Coach Kate is going to say, maybe it doesn't need to be an hour 3 times a week. Maybe it's 10 minutes a day. Like, it doesn't, you know, there's different ways to do that equation. So I hope you keep your 1 hour 3 times a week, but even 10 minutes is better than 0 minutes.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, I will say it's difficult to get any type of like bike rides in 10 minutes. That's what I love doing. I love riding my
Yes.
bike. So I try to do that. Like, that's what I'm trying.
Outside bike or inside bike?
Well, I live in Phoenix, so summer inside, winter outside. Like, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Before I opened Brick Road, when I worked at the bank, I was commuting to downtown Tempe on bike and did it during the summer, and it sucked, but it was 10 miles of cardio every day, and I loved it. It made me happy. So I want to get back to that.
We have that in common. I'm also a biker, and when possible, bike to work, and did it through the summer many years. And boy, does that make us tough.
You get used to it. And I was thankful.
Right?
Like, we had a gym at our office complex, so I could get there and I could shower and then go to work
Yeah.
like a normal human.
Right. Yeah. I won't get into my biking routine, but it was fine. You know, it was fine.
Yeah.
Let's see. I want to start to talk a little more about the future. So what is your year in, which is just such a sweet spot to be in, of like, you know, some things, but of as a manifester and seer of good things, I see this business like just flourishing, which is why I wanted to talk to you. And like, I just love being a part of it. Right. So what's your vision of like, and or not just your vision, but how are you going to include the team in that vision?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. If you want to hear my like 30,000 feet, like, let's say this is a big
Yeah.
dream. That one is very simple. When I started out, I was telling people like, I want to be as big as Starbucks, but I want to be inclusive. I want to actually be paying my baristas a living wage, and I literally want to create a corporation that the one thing I change as far as how we lead and how we do our business is we don't create a pay gap between the CEO and the bottom line employee. So that means the wealth is distributed a little bit more fairly, and if that means I have baristas making 100,000 a year, so be it. You could do anything you wanted, and like, you can make a living going to work to create community and make some coffee. Why wouldn't you choose to do that? So like, that's that big dream. I don't know when or if that'll ever happen. But my next, like, our current focus is like, you've seen the space. We are a small coffee shop.
It's cozy.
It's cozy. Yes. Yeah. We do not have a lot of space. So like, our first priorities, we've been in talks with our landlord about like the possibility of future expansions. That's where we would like to go if there's ever an opportunity to expand on either side of us. That would be that first step that I've been focusing on, because there's so many community event ideas that I have that I just have not been able to implement because I don't have the space to support it. So that's kind of that first step. Now, obviously, if I wait too long or if that doesn't happen quick enough, we're going to look at a second location.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like, going back to how we got into Brick Road, it was the construction was done. Everything was done. We just had an artist paint the walls. And like, we cleaned it and like fixed things up a little, but like, everything was done. So like, how do you build out a coffee shop? I don't know. Who does it? How much does it cost? I don't know. So like, there's a lot of those like, oh, I really don't know how to open one of these businesses, and if I want to expand, I'm gonna figure that out. So that's kind of that next step. So because of all those questions on that second location, that's why our priority has been like, can we just expand? Because then I don't need to rebuild any coffee stuff. I can just paint more walls and create more community space, and that's so much easier.
Yes. Or maybe it's not. You don't know. You haven't built the coffee shop yet. It might not be that hard.
Might not be. I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, doing that, and then how do I include the team in that? The team is honestly like, they keep pressuring me to just like try to buy out the businesses next to us so we can expand. And I'm like, it's nice that you think I have money to do that, but I don't. And I also don't think that's not how the business works. Like,
Yeah.
let me just buy you out. No, that's not how
Right.
it works.
Yeah.
So,
Get out.
So they definitely want to be involved in that. They have a lot of ideas. And I think that's the thing that I try to lean into is like, whether it be like when they start getting really frustrated with how the bar is set up right now, they'll start telling me like, when you do the second one, you need to do da 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 da. And it's like, okay. And I write it down and I'm like, there's in that dream journal. But then they have a lot of ideas like, when we get more space, we should do this event or that event. And those are really fun to play with and kind of like toss around and figure out how we're going to create more community with it and like really the impact that we can have. And I love that they stopped thinking about like, not stopped, but their focus shifted from thinking about like the business as a coffee business and more as a community business. And that's one of the most inspiring things for me to see is that they get the mission of what we're doing. We're always going to serve coffee, but our focus is how do we look at the needs of our community and find ways to fill those voids.
I'm going to pause and make sure that you know they're doing that because of you. You are the leader and you created this wonderful space and team where they feel safe to be creative, which is not easy. So I want to sing your praises that you did that. Like you made this space, you've inspired them. And so as this grows, like I hope that you trust yourself and kick that imposter gremlin to, I don't know, some other place far, far away, because you have created that space. Yeah. You know, I hope that you can trust yourself and feel confident.
I definitely feel more confident than a year ago.
Good. That's a step.
There's definitely been a lot of validation, and I appreciate that. And that's something that I hold very dear. Like, Jesse and I talk a lot about what success means to us with Brick Road.
Yeah.
We've never put a dollar amount on it. Like I am free labor for that place, and like every bank that I worked in banking, I know how that works. Every time we get if we needed to get another loan, they're going to evaluate us and say we're not a sustainable business because I'm not paying myself. And that's just a philosophy that I have of like, I'm pouring myself into this business to get it off the ground. And like, while we're not making money, while I'm not making any paychecks, I have never felt richer in my life than I do right now. And it's because I feel like I have a community that supports me. I feel like I have people that truly care about everybody. And after a year being locked up in a pandemic and working from home and not connecting with humans, I feel inspired that we are going to heal as a society. We're not as divided as we think we are. It's just a vocal divide. It's a very apparent divide, but like I feel so much hope and joy from seeing the community and how they respond to different things. So I hope that like that's one thing that people can listen to and learn is like sometimes when you're feeling dark and like things are hopeless, like just believe and manifest it, and then the universe will surprise you.
Right. Do the Google search. See what's there.
Yep. Exactly.
So cool. Well, Gabe, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
No, if you're in Tempe, come by Brick Road. We'd love to have you. I'd love for you to see our place and experience the little magic that we have.
It is. It just feels so good. We'll say, yeah, if you're going to visit Phoenix for any of the upcoming tourism events, Brick Road is located right off the US 60 and rural. Very easy to get to, even if you aren't in Tempe, because the highway system is very well connected. So Gabe Hagen, co-owner of Brick Road Coffee, and I'm going to manifest that it will soon be all over the world because it's so great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Also want to thank our production team because this wouldn't be possible without the whole behind the scenes team. To our attorney, Lou Silverman, who was the brainchild of this podcast and co-host. So to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in today. You matter, you are enough, and you deserve to put yourself first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leadership Talks is proudly sponsored by Ascent Solutions, where we believe people are the best investment. Do you manage a team or own your own business? Research shows that when employees feel invested in and feel a sense of connection with the people they work with, they are more productive and more likely to stay with their current employer. At Ascent Solutions, we offer services including leadership coaching, professional development workshops, and brand development consulting, all of which are available in person or online. It is always the right time to invest in yourself and in your team. Visit us at ascentsolutions.net to schedule a complimentary consultation today. You've been tuning into Leadership Talks with your host, Dr. Kate Vawter. You can find this show and learn how to be one of the best in the world at www.ascentsolutions.net and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing the show with others.